Buddy. Hello everybody, this is Carl from S1 Studios, and today I'm just going to have a quick once over of the Vienna Pro Ensemble software to try and make it a little clearer for people that are trying to get into it, and because I've had a few questions on the various functions. Fortunately or unfortunately, I'm using Cubase. I don't have much experience with Studio One or the various other DAWs that you may be using. I do apologise, but you tend to stick with what you know. So the majority of questions seem to come in from people that are having difficulties with Vienna getting multiple channels. Now, multiple channels in Cubase is not a new thing. Most DAWs have been able to do this for a long time. The best way to think about this is if I bring the mixer over and do this. I'm using a RME Fireface card. Now, and I'll explain a little bit about how this works, okay? So if I go into, this is Cubase 10 by the way, so it might look a little different to what you may be used to, You'll notice in here that I'm using, I don't have many outputs. As you can see, there's what, technically speaking, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. However, I've got multiple audio outs here. Now, these aren't the main outs. What these are virtual outs that Cubase creates and attaches to various instruments in order so you can hear them. You'll notice this, well, you may not notice, but there's no MIDI here. And this is a very small project that I'm working on at the moment. But the reason why there's no MIDI is because I don't really use MIDI per se. Obviously, the track is written with MIDI data. The instruments are operated with MIDI data. But I tend to do the volume control as audio, and I only use MIDI for expression and that kind of things, which are draw in or whatever, or record. So I take that out of the mixer. Now, how is it that I'm using more outs than you would normally have? Well, Cubase, like a lot of other programs, works in some surprising ways. So what we'll do is I've got a few instances of VSTs open here, and we're going to use the top one here, which is it's kind of important because it also uses Vienna, and this is connected to a local host. And the reason why I'm using a local host is it allows you to break up the resources that Cubase is using, and Cubase doesn't then hog everything, because you tend to find if you load everything into Cubase, it'll take as much RAM as you'll put in your machine, and it bogs it down quite heavily. So, how many channels is Vienna using? Well, up here in the little box, you've got a cog. And if you click on that, it allows you to change the amount of outputs, MIDI ports, and inputs that you have, that Cubase can see of this instance only. So you might only want 16 channels, or you might want more. To be honest with you, I'm not entirely certain on how many you can go to, but it's quite a few, I would imagine. I tend to keep them in 32. It leaves them big enough for a few libraries, or even a single library, or even a single section, and allows me to break down the resources a little bit better. So we'll close that. So that's all that is. You'll be familiar with that. I've renamed it so it's what I'm using, so that makes life easier for me when I'm identifying what's in the mixer. And when I bring over Vienna, there's only 4 instances in here, but each one of these is represented by a different instance in Cubase. Okay, and as you can see, as I click through them, it's a bit of a mess, I'll be honest. I only created this for this project. I still need to repair my previous template because it went wrong. What you're looking at here is folders. I'll just open these, and in these folders are the channels which I'm using from the library, which is loaded in here. And as you can see, don't worry about the library, which library I'm using, it makes no difference. This could be any library. And these are all the instruments which are loaded in currently into this this instance, shall we say. There's not many in there. Now, when we open up these instances, you'll see that you've got output CSS1 violins, MIDI channel 1. Next one, basses, channel 3. Don't worry about channel 2. It should be channel 2, but I deleted the instrument. Now, when you first load these in, they'll all try and use the same output. Contact does that. And there's nothing wrong with that. You might want them all on the same. You might say, for example, have them all on one channel so you can just apply almost like a global reverb, or say a global EQ over all of them. But I don't like to do that. I like to have them individual. So if you go to your batch configuration here, and let me just pull this down a little bit. Go to batch functions, you can clear the output section and create one individual channel for each loaded instrument. And what that means is that each instrument in here will have a separate virtual out that you can use. Okay. Now, in order to see them, because you obviously can't see them straight away, you will, if you click on Mixer, and I'll just minimize this one. These are all the channels that I'm using. These are aux channels, and you can add or remove them. Originally, what you'll do is you'll see just one channel, which will represent the whole VST itself. But if you want separate channels, you just click on the plus and add as many as you require, and that is represented by these here. Originally, you'd just see one channel here, and you'll click on that and you'll think, yeah, I've got all these instruments in there, but I can't use them, or they're all playing at the same time, and I don't want that. So then you go into the mixer, you add the channels, and you'll see these auxiliary channels pop up. And because I've told it I can use 32 outs, I just tell it which one I want it to use. So output 1, 1 and 2, stereo of course, and all the way down to 32. So what I'm basically doing is in Vienna, I am telling it to use a separate MIDI channel, and the MIDI channels you'll see one there and all there and all there, but you actually tell it what MIDI channel you want to use on the instrument itself. So it's using A1, A3, that'll be A4, and you'll see that in Cubase in a moment. And the output, I'm using an individual channel per instance, or per instrument. And all I've done to get that is use the mixer, clicked on the plus, made sure that when I opened up this plugin that I selected that there was 32 channels available, and that's it. And that's all you do in Vienna. That's all ready to go. I mean, obviously if you want to add effects you can do so, but that's a different video. So then when we come to Cubase, I'll just minimize all of this. You need to make sure again that you go up to here and you need to activate the outputs that you wish to use. Now if I click on that, you'll see that these are the activated outputs, and as you can see there's 32 available, which is probably why I went for 32 in the first place. But these will reflect what you've chosen on Vienna. Then what I've done is I've created a folder for CSS strings, studio strings, there we are, and these are just MIDI channels, and as you can see they point to the Vienna instance and the channel, and this is just MIDI. All this is MIDI. But what I've done is I've actually got the that's no idea what that's doing. If we go into VST instruments, you'll see that there is multiple audio channels, and they become available once you enable them up here. And because I've already mapped them in Vienna to each individual channel, when I press a key, each individual one will have a different channel. So if we look at the mixer now, you'll see that this is one channel, and that's CSS first violins, second violins, viola and cello. Second violins, I just wish it wouldn't disappear. I normally work on multiple monitors, so I'm very sorry, but it kind of messes with everything when I try and do this. I really don't want it in the project window. Oh, that's a dinky one for you. So as I change each individual one, it uses a different output. And if I was to minimize this slightly, so we can see the mixer at the same time, because I'm good like that. And we'll just move this across to there. Oh, actually, I've got the mixer in the back. Sorry, I've got the mixer in the background. There it is. And if I don't want to be in the VST instruments. I want to be on the MIDI instruments. So now when I press a key, you'll see over here. If I just move this over, that's CSS Violins 1. And if I go change it to Violins 2, you see it's using a different channel, bass. And the benefit of this, of course, is that I can add sends, inserts, all kinds of crazy stuff to this, and it doesn't make any difference because it will all output eventually to a master or to a send anyway. Because if you were to look at, let me try and get the original mixer up because it's going to drive me up the wall. Let me just drag this out here. Mix console. There it is. So over here are my actual outs, okay, and I've got some effects on here, but nothing major, and I've got some inserts in here, whatever. But they will all come out of one of these outs, whichever one I'm using at the time, and that's really the one that I'll be recording to record the stems from. And that's all that matters. All these are virtual channels; they're just virtual audio channels. Any DAW will probably do that for you. And when you're working with virtual audio channels, you're working with the raw audio. You're EQing the raw audio, compressing the raw audio, and each channel is treated individually. It's much easier to work with than standard MIDI, because obviously with MIDI you can't EQ MIDI data. Yes, you can affect MIDI data with various controllers, but the output of every track you'll ever make is always going to be audio in the end. So if you're doing the mastering process in the DAW, if you're doing the mixing process in the DAW, then you'll be using your audio faders. Now, I'm not telling you not to use MIDI. I'm just saying that I don't. A lot of people I know don't use MIDI that way, as in it's not in the mixer. Obviously, MIDI data's here because that's how we do it. We write MIDI data. But I hope that helps with understanding Vienna. Each one of these represents an instance in Vienna. Vienna itself, you can host it on the machine, you can host it on different machines. As long as it can see it, it doesn't matter. Realistically, when you're looking at the mixer, you're really looking at virtual audio outs or auxiliary audio outs. They're not the main ones that your sound card uses. They're your main outs, just like the main ins that you'll use that's recording my voice now. And all you're basically doing is mapping each individual instrument to its own virtual out. And you do that in Cubase, through the instance, and in Vienna, bring Vienna back in. So I've got this one section for strings and solo. I've got Project Sam Orchestral 1 in here, and obviously this has got various different ones in there. And again, with the mixer, you have strings, brass. Okay, so with this one, what I've done is each section is just one channel. Not different channels, just each section, but it works the same way. So, for example, it might be that there was absolutely loads of them, but as you can see, as I click them, other channels pop out because I'm using folders and things. It just makes life easier, and that's easy to do. You just right-click and insert folder. And because of this, I mean, I don't really do any effects in Vienna. There are some amazing effects you can get for it. I think you can get the I forget what it's called, the add-on for it, and it's very good, but I do it all in Cubase. So, but as you can see, just by using the plus and the minus, I'm creating auxiliary channels. Them auxiliary channels will match what's in Cubase up here, because this is really what's controlling it. And the other thing to note is when you save it, it'll save all these instances as well. So they should open up afterwards. So that's it, really. Vienna can be quite complicated, I do admit. And I do apologise if my previous video confused the hell out of people. It wasn't my intention. There are a few other DAWs I'm going to have a look at, so DAWs I'm going to have a look at in regards to how this works. See if I can answer some questions on them. For example, Studio One, Mixcraft I think is the other one, various others, Logic. and see if they can be made any clearer. As before, if you've got any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in there. Good or bad feedback, it's all welcome. And if it helped, then I'm glad. Thanks for watching.